Good morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning. I am your host, Mr. Kadish. Joining me today are our fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Mr. Butts himself, Dutch Myers, coming at us. You and Dutch.
I have a confession to make, Matt.
Hey.
Yes.
I completely forgot I was even on the show this week. And I haven't been on the show, right? So my brain's in the habit of not doing it. And I'm back now, but I just hadn't clicked in yet. And I woke up like 20 minutes ago and I'm like, oh shit, I guess I better get ready to do the show. So I don't know what we're doing. I don't know I didn't know Shags was going to be here today. I'm surprised Tom's here at all. And
well, we're always surprised, Tom.
Yeah.
So
I had to go get coffee. So I'm driving down the road. I'm driving down the road and I go, oh, I better tell Matt I might be late. But so I texted you and I had to get some coffee or else I just wouldn't even be able to talk at all right now. But here we are. I don't know what we're talking about. I haven't read any articles, but that's pretty normal way to do it. So happy to be here, guys. How are you?
Well, welcome back to being a regular on the show, Dutch. We missed you and your feet. So
no, my feet.
Everyone in the chat, press F for feet. If you're glad to see Mr. Butters.
Stop.
All right. Now, Brian from the Popcast.
Hey!
After a brief romantic interlude with the wife, he has returned triumphant. How you doing, Brian? How was your Valentine's Day weekend?
It was all right. My wife made me a breakfast burrito this morning the size of my head. And she goes, oh, I'll cut that in half for you. And I'm like, no need. No, don't worry about it. She goes, you're not going to have time to finish it. And I'm like, I have 7 minutes. I'll knock it out.
Challenge accepted.
Yep. And I finished it right before that timer clicked to zero. So feel good about myself. I'm a big bag, but I'm a good big bag.
Well, welcome back to the show. We missed you. Speaking of missing people, we missed you too, Odin, even though you were on the show last week. But welcome back. Always good to have the Lord of the Shelves here on the show.
Of course. This is the weirdest intro I think that's ever happened. I just feel so out of place.
Awkward.
Lord of the Shelves, Lord of the Pineapple Pizza, all being left out here. But it's always good to be back here on the Salty Saturday stream. It's always fun.
Your shelves look like they joined together or something.
Yes, I have more shelves up here.
They're multiplying.
Yes.
They're multiplying.
A gift from the wife, yes.
Pretty soon you'll look like Tom's house, and it's just going to be shelves, the house of shelves everywhere, filled with it looks like a library in there, man. So
sounds like a Netflix original series, The House of Shelves. Indeed. Except Odin's not a black gay woman, so
yeah,
picked up.
Disabled black gay woman.
Disabled black gay woman, indeed.
Gotta hit all those
BIPOC.
Put a chick in it, make her gay.
Yes.
BIPOC disabled woman of something. Yes.
Going off the sound effect, the appropriate sound effect. Tom Connors Jr. from Midnight's Edge is here. He's done eating his cereal for the day, and he has decided to join us. How you doing, Tom?
Are you really retarded?
Yes, I am.
I'm all right.
I think.
Only on Thursdays.
What?
Only on
I thought you were
Saturdays,
queer.
actually. Yeah. Well, don't want to go off that one. I could ease into Shagsworth with that intro, but we're once again welcoming the Shagsworth to the live stream. Shags, good to see you again. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Always a pleasure to be here with you guys and, take a break from family life on the weekends. So, like I said, much appreciated. That's not to say I don't love my family. Of course I do. I love you guys. But,
Looks like you got a feline friend joining you there.
Yeah, she every time I sit down, she lives down here in my office. So whenever I sit down, she's like, "Hey, I'm right here. Can I come sit?" So yes,
That's a good looking pussy.
Wow.
yeah.
High level.
High class.
You had to make it weird.
That's what I do.
This
You know,
is
we're
not
talking
fair.
about her being in his lap and wanting attention, all that business. No, you just
like-
go that extra mile.
She's just down there going, acknowledge me.
Acknowledge
here.
me.
Well, you know who we do need to acknowledge is our leaderboards. We have Made You Say Butts, who's still number one for our top super chatter, $200. And then we got Scotty Dub. I'm sorry, $300. Then we got Scotty Dub bringing up second place with $200. Nexon Iron Man is our most consistent donator. And our top gifters are Jillian H., Major Chai Chai, and Eric Winberg with our top contributors. Still Scotty Dub. He just eking out a lead there in front of Made You Say Butts, but that's okay. We like you guys nonetheless. Speaking of which, guys, Mr. Butters has dictated that we need to hit 15 new memberships during the course of the live stream in order to hit our goal.
I hate it when you say that.
That is our aim. Also, want to encourage you guys to subscribe and share out the channel. We're trying to get to 20,000 subs. We're only a couple hundred away, so we need your help and support to hit that goal. Also, if you like chatting in our chat during the live stream and want to chat with us outside of the live stream, go and check out saltynerdiscord.com. We've got a very vibrant community going on over there. Saltynerdiscord.com will take you right to an invite for our Discord server if you want to come over there and chat about movies or video games or whatever the case may be. And right after the show, we're going to be redirecting all you guys over to The Brain Show, which starts at 12:30 Pacific time, 3:30 Eastern time. Brian, what you got going on The Brain Show today?
We're talking about a lot of things. Asteroid's going to come kill us in about 10 years, which is going to be fun. Also, I have a lot of examples of news personalities lying, and Marvel Disney's new Captain America Brave New World, and that whole budget fiasco. And sort of, we have a theory on why they fibbed the numbers and what's coming up next. So it's going to be a fun show. Oh, and we finally got our monetization back. So I'm really excited to lose it again.
Hey, Brian, didn't that asteroid go from like 2.4 to 3.2% chance?
It was 1.7, 2.3, and now it's at 3%.
Oh boy, that's a little worrisome, to be honest with you. I mean, there's, so. Also, biblically,
the Bible actually predicts wormwood will hit the planet once Israel's the same generation of the Israel become a nation, and that's exactly 80 years from when Israel became a nation. It's a very weird coincidence.
Okay,
just saying, if you're not right with God, you should consider it.
Well, speaking of getting right with God, Odin from O&B Reviews has his Raven Awards that he wants people to vote on, and we have pinned that link to vote on the Raven Awards in the chat. Odin, you want to tell anyone about what the Raven Awards is all about?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's kind of crazy that the Oscars are coming up next weekend, but that doesn't matter because we're boycotting that crap. So come watch the Raven Awards instead, where we award the best and worst movies of 2024. A lot of other fun categories, cultural categories like NPC of the Year, Shill of the Year, amongst many others. So please fill out your ballots. Get those turned in, about 5-6 more days of that, and then I will get my PowerPoint presentation together because we are just high class over on OMB Reviews for the Raven Awards. And we'll also do another edition of Ravens Bowling, where you can predict what you think is going to win at the Raven Awards. And if you are a top winner, you get to win 4Ks and Blu-rays. For instance, I've got Constantine on 4K Steelbook right here that just came out. So that will be one of the films up for potentially winning.
Are you going to wear a tuxedo?
I like to do like the fake dressing up. So I have like a jacket on with a T-shirt underneath. I'm like,
you should get one of those T-shirt tuxedos then.
Yes, I used to have one.
Yeah, it's a pretty good 4K, but I still have to say, the movie and the disc of last year has to be Nosferatu. I mean, oh my God, looks amazing, sounds amazing. It's a beauty.
And I would have gotten it too, but I just wasn't crazy about the movie.
I just picked that up last night, actually, the Nosferatu Blu-ray. So I'm excited to watch it.
Is there still a ton of like annoying grain on that Constantine scan? Like
grain is film.
Obnoxious amounts of grain. No, this was added grain for sure. This is not normal film grain.
It looks decent. They did a 4K scan of the negatives.
Okay.
So
yeah.
All right. Can't wait to watch it.
Unlike Lionsgate and Kill Bill.
Well, you guys know what I can't wait for are super chats. And we have Jillian H. starting off the day with her 5 Salty Nerd Gifted Podcast memberships. Thank you so much, Jillian H., the artist formerly known as Jillian N., also known as the Queen of Gifted Memberships. Appreciate you. And Major Chai Chai, who also threw down his 5 gifted Salty Nerd Podcast memberships. Thank you so much, Major Chai Chai. That brings us up to 10. So we're almost to Mr. Butter's mandated goal right there. And then, of course, we got Eric Winberg dropping his obligatory 1 Salty Nerd Podcast membership. Thank you so much, Eric. Appreciate you. And we have a members chat for 5 months from Juliet. Captain America 4 dropped 82% Friday on Friday.
Yep.
Odin, you got anything to say about that?
Yeah. I love Tony. Tony over at Deadline is just my favorite because he shills for these movies like there's no tomorrow. and he's trying to compensate so much for this movie. So he starts off by saying, despite its B- cinema score, it's doing really well. So trying to act as if like, oh, it's overcoming its B- cinema score, and then it goes on to say it isn't imploding to the same degree as The Marvels, which dropped 78%, and it's not as much as Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which dropped 70%. So they're projecting a 68% week 2 drop. And they're saying, well, hey, it's better than that 70% drop of Quantumania.
Huh.
It's still early in this weekend. So I wouldn't be surprised if it gets closer to 70%.
Well, guys, you know what we're getting closer to is our members goal, because Aaron Charman just gifted 1 Saltiner podcast membership. That means we just need 3 more. 3 more, guys. And Made You Say Butts for $2. No feet, please. Looking forward to the pod.
Granted.
Okay. Come on, who doesn't like butter feet?
Gross.
All good stuff.
Why'd I come
All good
back?
stuff.
I don't understand it. I should have stayed away.
Well, you know what else is hard to understand, Mr. Butters, is Hollywood is mandating that the actors they cast in their movies have a certain number of Instagram followers. And this is pretty interesting. By the way, link to all these articles is in the description if you guys out there want to do your own research. But Maya Hawke, the daughter of Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke, was recently on a podcast where she basically said that producers are now casting movies based off of the amount of Instagram followers that they have. And basically, if you want to be in a movie, you have to collectively cast actors that have a certain number of Instagram followers. And famously, Zendaya,
Fucking knew it!
one of the reasons Zendaya keeps getting cast and stuff is because of her Instagram follower account. I think she has something like 60 million.
I've been saying this for years.
Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense because she's not talented.
But you know what's interesting about this is that when I worked in Hollywood, I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but I did work in Hollywood briefly.
We're aware.
There were these like little like pocket books that producers would order. And in these pocketbooks, they were like a stack of index cards about an inch thick. And you had every single working actor in Hollywood listed in there and how much they would bring to a movie if they were cast in that movie. So how much monetary value just an actor being in your movie would, appear. And then you could use that if you had like an actor attached to get studios to pony up a certain amount of money. Well, it seems that those have been replaced by Instagram follower accounts. And Maya's dad, Ethan Hawke, has said that basically he's been in situations where he couldn't cast the people he wanted to because they didn't have the proper amount of Instagram followers, according to the producers. And the logic here is that the more Instagram followers you have, the more free marketing you can do for the movie that you're in. And so basically, if producers can bring, let's say, 100 million Instagram followers to a movie via the people that they cast in it, that equates to a certain amount of marketing spend that they don't actually have to like pony up money for. And that will bring in this X number amount of dollars for the movie once it's released, et cetera, et cetera. And so basically Maya Hawke put this practice on blast, but even though we all knew it was happening, but she's basically saying that there are movies that will not get made if the people acting in them don't have a certain number of collective Instagram followers. So I'm going to start with you, Shagsworth. What do you think of this practice of producers only casting people based off of their Instagram following?
Well, only doing that is dumb. I mean, I can see the logic behind like trying to cut back on your marketing budget because it can be really, it's a huge portion of it anyway. But I mean, dismissing people's like merit in acting that could fill a specific role in favor of, oh, you don't have enough, like that is just stupid. It's as bad as it's just another form of DEI, in my opinion. So like it's not surprising at all. I understand. It just depends on, and I would think everyone would think that it's just a nefarious part of Hollywood, and it very much could be. I think there's some well-intentioned people that are trying to utilize it, but it's probably, they're dismissing too much talent in favor of like saving on marketing dollars, which, at some point you have to you got to spend money to make money, and if not having someone who has a million followers because they're they'll bring a better dynamic to the cast or just more depth to the role, then you should sacrifice there, in my opinion.
Well, Tom, one of the interesting things about this is that this is basically, they're using Instagram followers as shorthand for the actor's Q score, like how popular and well-known that person is. But they don't seem to be factoring in like Facebook followers or TikTok followers or anything. It's just Instagram seems to be the thing that they're most focused on. And Ethan Hawke basically said that, like, he's been in situations where producers have said, oh, I don't care if this person can act. They have 10 million Instagram followers, cast them in your movie, as opposed to this person who can act that has no social media presence whatsoever. So what's your take on this? Do you think that this is basically emblematic of how Hollywood is looking at actors nowadays?
Well, we've been reporting on this for a while. Like I said, Script Doctor kind of keyed us into this, is true. And a few other people have talked about it before, where like this is basically the reason why we got Pattinson as Batman instead of Nicholas Hoult. Because Nicholas Hoult did not have as big of a social media following as Pattinson did. That was one of the direct things we were told. And it's stupid. And you're 100% right. It's why all these... Because if an actor decides, I don't want to be on a certain social media thing, and I think Mai even brought this up in her thing, they say, well, then we have to take that amount off your score or whatever it is when we turn it into the studio, her manager or agent or whatever said. So they actually have like a numbered score for the, and they count more than just Instagram. They bring other ones in here because, like, this is my understanding is why some of the actors and actresses haven't dumped X yet, even though they claim they were going to and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, it's just stupid, and choosing an actor based on their social media following is ridiculous. It's not like that doesn't mean anything as far as your caliber of acting. The only one of these in these groups that actually gets cast that way is the kid from Wonka and Dune and all that stuff. I just forgot his name all of a sudden.
Timothée
Chalamet, because he can actually act. Right, like I will argue that he's probably the Johnny Depp of these kids' generation, right? Ugh. Other than that, Zendaya, the rest of these folks, they're just popular. They're not actually movie stars. Right, that's the difference.
Sounds like a Chinese social credit score.
Kind of.
Well, shorthand for Dutch is a Q score, but I want to ask Odin because Odin, you're the numbers guy. And basically, the way producers look at movies is basically via the numbers, and they know that if they can bring, let's say, collectively 100 million Instagram followers to a movie via the people that they cast, they know for a fact that 100 million followers will translate into X number of dollars over the course of the movie's promotion or release or whatever the case may be. So, do you think that there is some credit or merit to this idea of casting people based off of their online following?
Not as a general principle. And the reason why is because there are, I think, more cases that can prove that it doesn't always work than cases proving that it does work. So it depends on the movie, it depends on the person, depends really on what's going on, right? There's so many factors that need to be present in order for a film to be a hit in today's market. The greatest example I can think of that shows why this is just complete hogwash as a general principle is if this was all true, if the number of followers you had resulted in box office or had a tight correlation with it, then The Rock would have billion-dollar films from the last several years. But that has not happened. In fact, Black Adam was one of the biggest flops of the year, and in fact was kind of the end, that death note for whatever plans that they actually had going forward in that environment. So, if this was actually true, The Rock's movies would be doing a lot better than what they actually are doing, and Black Adam would have done amazing, but that did not happen. So clearly, just because you have a lot of followers does not mean that people are actually going to go to the theater. It's kind of like where there are people that try to take social media presence or social media hype and say, we can translate this to box office success. Well, just because someone's talking about it online does not mean that they're going to go to the theater and actually spend the money. Doesn't mean that they're actually going to leave their house to go ahead and do so. That's also the same mistake that was made when you had all of the hilarious things that happened with Morbius, right? The whole "it's Morbin time" meme. The studios said, look at all this traffic that Morbius is getting online. The people love this. They think it's hilarious. Let's put it back in theaters. No one saw it. No one went to go see it. Because, again, social media is not real life. And I think that the studios and companies just have never been able to grasp that. Whether it's decisions like this or whether it's them trying to make policy based off of what they perceive to be the social justice movement on social media that they think represents the majority of people, when the reality is that it doesn't. And in fact, it's mostly either bots or a very small, very vocal group of extremists that are trying to push their narratives and trying to push and force things on other people. So whether it's something like that or whether it's actually cases of hiring actors to try to get them to do something, it doesn't actually work. It doesn't actually translate. And I think the proof is in the pudding, as they say.
Odin, are you saying the Rock's social media is nothing but bots?
I'm saying that in a channel with as many followers as he has, that there's a much higher number of bots than in smaller channels. I mean, the more people that you have following you, the more bots that you actually have.
This is all coming together for me now in my head.
Yes.
So I'm completely starting to understand everything.
It also makes me want to start looking further into the whole dead internet theory, where you know, because like you look at these massive accounts, and because the studios are now making these choices based off of follower accounts, the fact that it's not resulting in a direct correlation of people showing up to the theater and showing up to support the film, it makes me think like, maybe there needs to be some kind of audit of, you know, maybe Doge, when they're done with the government stuff, should go ahead and start to, you know, go through these follower accounts and see how many of them are actually trolls or how many of them are actually bots and how many of them are actually real, authentic people that actually engage and interact. Because I guarantee you it's going to cut a lot of people off of those follower accounts.
The problem is, the more bots there are, the faster we approach the dead internet. And once you get to like over 50% bots, then officially bots have more, they have controlling interest in the internet. And so it becomes a problem. I hope that's not the case.
That's an interesting theory, though, that like I haven't really heard the dead internet theory or whatever, but like the way the algorithms work, especially on X, like it's hard to look at, well, who's actually talking about this stuff, because a lot of the stuff that we talk about, I know that like my other friends who are, even though they're online, like they have no idea about the intricacies of like Hollywood or, you know, pop culture. They're just like consuming things here and there. So it really makes me wonder, like, how do you really see, like, what is the real interaction with something, and how, because it is difficult to step outside and shift your algorithm away, because there's always this constant push to, like, even though I've muted probably 10 or 15 people in the past 2 weeks, like I'm still getting shit from like that side of things. And I'm like, why won't this go away? Like there's something that wants me to continue to engage, you know?
I mute every rage bait account and every account that posts something as a reply with that has nothing to do with the original post. I mute. It doesn't matter who it is. I muted hundreds of accounts, and I still get the stupid reply bots and rage bait. Like a picture of Adam Schiff. It's like, what do you think about this guy? You know what? F you, bro. That's so low quality. Stop it.
Yep.
And you know what?
Brian,
The people fall for it. For hundreds of people who are like, oh, that guy sucks or whatever. You know, come on.
Yeah.
Brian, I do want to ask you, because Hollywood does seem a little bit more kind of vulnerable to social media opinions and stuff like that than other industries. Case in point, the Snyder Cut. Basically, Warner Brothers was bullied into believing that there was this grassroots movement on social media that wanted to see the Snyder Cut version of the Justice League. They ended up releasing it. Then it turns out that Zack Snyder just paid a bunch of PR firms to create a bunch of bots that made it seem like there was this demand. But more so than that, what's interesting about the Instagram metric in particular is that most celebrities use Instagram and interact one-on-one with people on Instagram, whereas on other platforms like Facebook or TikTok or like whatever, there is no interaction, and they're just against Twitter at this point because of Elon Musk. So like they don't want to lend Twitter any credibility, even though there are a lot of journalists and actors on Twitter that manage their own accounts and deal with people directly. But the Instagram metric, to Hollywood at least, is the best metric by which to judge whether or not a celebrity has a high Q score with their followers and their audience and stuff like that. So what's your take on the effectiveness of social media in terms of like influencing Hollywood's decisions?
First off, my favorite actors don't even have social media. I can't find them anywhere. And they work and they're super talented. So, secondly, I don't know why Instagram is considered like the S tier social media of website. It doesn't make any sense. you can have millions of followers on Instagram and still not get 100 people to click a link. It's just not a market. The platform itself is so internalized. It's almost incestuous how people that follow accounts really normally don't engage outside of Instagram. So it's not a very good social media to base that entire metric on. If anything, X or YouTube would be a much more viable platforms in which to market a movie. People, definitely not. So I never understood that. I think it's just a popular thing. It's the click. It's what young people use Instagram. So we need to base our entire model on whether or not they have enough Instagram followers. Clearly doesn't work, and clearly Instagram is not in that tier that you should be giving it that much respect, considering that you can't get anyone to watch these movies. I think Zendaya is a horrible actor. I'll be honest. Everything she does is mid. Her acting is mid. Her looks are mid. The way she talks bothers me. It looks like she's constantly taking Quaaludes. I've never understood why anyone wants to watch her movies. I've never understood why Hollywood keeps casting her. Everything about her is as mid as it can get. She is just the average. She's like the most average actor ever.
Brian,
Yet for some reason she gets these huge projects.
Zendaya is in, she makes 10 times better.
And I don't respect anyone with only a first name. Frankly
You're
speaking.
so wrong. You're so wrong. She's the epitome of Hollywood greatness right now. She is the bar that everybody needs to set.
She's so plain and she's so uncharismatic. Nothing she does is interesting.
Did you just wake up racist?
Everything she touches looks better, and
I don't even know what race she is, so it has nothing to do with race.
Wow.
It's all about her
Exactly
talent.
my
How
point.
dare
I
you?
don't see colors.
Yeah, I have no idea what she is, bro. I think Mediterranean or something. I don't even know.
She's clearly a pale-skinned, freckled redhead. To
I don't know, but she's the worst. She's the worst, and I don't hate her as a person. I just don't understand why everything I watch has to have fucking Zendaya in it.
You're just a phobe and an ist, Brian. So
Okay,
just deal
whatever.
with it. So
Just a hater, man.
Clearly, the
hater.
Instagram model doesn't work, and I don't think Instagram is a good platform in which
this racism
if you're
anymore.
gonna base your entire model on marketing a movie with their social media platform, Instagram is the worst platform to base that on.
I'm gonna have to replace you for the next couple months with your brother. I think that's what we're gonna have to do. So
He won't come on, bro. He won't come on. You guys aren't rageful enough. He needs more toxicity in his life. His words.
Well, Dutch, there is no bigger fan of Zendaya than you, as we all know. And in fact, during the actors' strikes, she had a couple movies that were postponed because she wasn't allowed to post on Instagram about them like she normally is, and so they needed to wait for her to get access to movie promotions once more to release the movies. That's how important Zendaya is to the films that she's
how many Instagram followers does Pedro Pascal have?
That's a good question. We should
40 trillion, and it still doesn't work.
Because he's in everything now too. It's like in the chat, and Laurie just reminded me, Zendaya and Pedro Pascal in the same movie.
The definition.
Yeah. But that would also be like the biggest movie ever to hit the big
Somebody
screen.
did a fake poster of that had Zendaya and Pedro Pascal, and the name of the movie was Every Movie You See.
Yeah,
or something
they're,
like
they're,
that.
They're
It was,
literally in everything now. It's crazy. So
yeah, but Dutch, what's your take on actors needing to have high Instagram followers?
It's the silliest thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, it's like I said earlier. It feels like they're doing some kind of weird Chinese social credit score to be able to get cast in movies. I don't know if I totally believe it, because I see plenty of movies with people in them that are don't have huge or really care a lot about their social medias, but at the same time it does make sense because you can't deny that she is in everything, and I guess I'm just gonna have to dive into it a little bit more because I haven't really thought about it a whole lot, to be honest with you. But what you're saying, I feel like it kind of tracks in my head, and it's really kind of annoying. But what do you do? I haven't watched a lot of movies this year, so I don't really have my thumb on the pulse of everything right now. So I don't know, man. It makes sense, but it also is super annoying. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like anybody to have to be tracked by popularity. You know, there's what happened to people with skill and
Talent.
you know,
Meritocracy,
people that
please.
can act. Yeah, for real. I mean, can you imagine somebody like I can't even think of a name right now, but you know, it's got to be kind of pissing off some of these old school Hollywood people, like even guys like Robert De Niro or somebody. Imagine somebody like him having like, so Mr. De Niro, how many Instagram followers do you have?
Into what? Into what? What are you talking about?
Or
Grandma, what?
So, I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
As it relates to like what you were saying earlier, Kadish, about like, you know, them having like their like little black book of how, you know, how profitable someone could be. Like it makes sense in that vein. Like, you know, you want inside information or like how well these actors could contribute to your movie. Like that's not necessarily like unheard of in any industry. Like you need to know who your top players are and where they might rank. It's just just seems a little bit ridiculous because how you measure that, like how do you really measure like the conversion rate of someone's Instagram followers to, you know, reducing your budget, but also contribute, like how does that contribute to reducing your marketing budget, but also to the success of your film? Like, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Popularity has always been a thing in Hollywood. I mean, this is just another method, I guess, to track that, but it doesn't make a lot of sense. I mean, they used to have things, I don't even know if they still do it, you know, like the sexiest man in alive or, you know, sexiest woman in Hollywood, you know, on the cover of People magazine or whatever, you know, I don't know, but you know, it's just that's what that's what movie stars used to be. Movie stars used to be people who you could bank on, whose name you could put on top of the poster and go, oh shit, this is a Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, or this is a Stallone movie, or something like that, you know. But they just don't do that anymore.
Now
So,
it's like, this is a Zendaya movie.
yeah, it's like, ugh.
Well, these are also like all the social medias they're driven by algorithms. So you essentially you see the things that you want to see, like where like traditional marketing was like it put things in front of like everybody, you know, like they tried to maximize the space, billboards, you know, posters and whatever, like TV commercials and shows, like, but with social media, you're like, a lot of the stuff is fed to you because you might like it, or it's something that you would interact with anyway. So I might not see things that are Zendaya related, you know, whereas someone who's into, you know, other TV shows that like are similar to that will see them, you know? So it's a weird, that's why all the social media tracking is very strange, and like who is actually seeing it? What are the demographics actually involved in there that are active? I feel like there's just too many things to consider in order to make it viable.
I think with Zack Snyder math, you could say that if Zendaya has 60 million followers and only 10% of those people show up for the movies, that's 6 million tickets sold for whatever movie that she's in.
I'm sorry, just for as an example, Sylvester Stallone has 18.9 million followers on Instagram, and Zendaya has 180 million. So
wow.
Instagram it's a horrible platform to base this match. I understand the concept of marketing a movie with a built-in base, but Instagram is the worst place to base that on. It's a horrible platform for marketing.
You know, it isn't a horrible platform for marketing, Brian. Our super chats.
Hey,
those movie reviews for 30. I don't know what that is. Whatever Israeli money is, it's 30
shekels. I don't know.
Shekels. 1 million Insta followers will cost about $8,000. You can fast track yourself if you are really scummy. Also, join the Real McCoy podcast if you are fed up with politics. Today, they are talking about Back to the Future.
Ooh, great, Scott.
Yes. Everyone's favorite
I'll be there.
time travel movie.
And just to follow up really quick, Arnold Schwarzenegger, he has 26 million Instagram followers. So, you know, he's got another one up on Sly there. So it's like you can go up to Sly and give him some crap about it. It's like, oh, you know, I got 12 million more Instagram subscribers than you.
Behind his Terminator movie did so well.
So, yeah.
I was an interior designer in that one.
Hitchhiker 42, a member for 5 months. Imagine telling someone like Sir Anthony Hopkins, sorry, I can't cast you in this film as you don't have a high enough social media presence.
That's right.
Answer to everything.
Oh my
Did you
god.
guys see that Stephen King's back on X, by the way?
Oh, of course he is.
Yeah,
all these phony actors, bro. Oh, we're leaving. They have these like statements drawn up. They sign it like it's some kind of declaration. 3 weeks later, they're like, "Hey guys, you guys see my new movie?
See,
I wrote a book.
does
So
anybody have a
you guys know what people aren't watching? Doctor Who.
Yeah,
Apparently.
I don't want to talk about Doctor Who.
Apparently,
just,
Doctor
Who
Who.
cares?
Who gives a shit?
Apparently,
I-
Doctor
out of
Who
this
is,
one.
is on the chopping
have,
block.
I have a question really quick, though, real quick. I want to know if anybody has a chart or something is keeping track of all the celebrities that said they were going to move out and haven't yet. 'Cause
Oh,
we really need to start putting some pressure on them.
yeah.
You know, and we should also do the same thing with people who went to that other thing and they're coming back.
Blue Sky,
to act.
and now they're
Yeah.
back. Because
Yeah.
Blue Sky
Right.
sucks.
Well,
And they're tired of talking to the same 4 people.
One celebrity who supposedly is definitely leaving is Cutie
This
Gatwa.
fucking guy. I swear to God.
The current Doctor Who. Apparently, rumors have been flying that he's worried that Doctor Who is actually hurting his career because of the low
boy.
ratings.
Oh yeah.
And, he has
Doctor Who is hurting his career.
he has a lot of potential work for him in LA. He wants to move from the UK to LA to pursue other projects. And supposedly he's already shot his regeneration scene. And so like he has one foot out the door. But in addition to that, apparently Disney isn't happy with the ratings that the Doctor Who seasons that they've been financing have been getting. A lot of people are saying that Russell T Davies has been more more focused on propaganda than he has on good storytelling, and that's been hurting the ratings. But according to Russell T Davies, they're like, hey, young people are tuning in droves. But an insider basically said like that, you know, you can have as many young people who don't spend money as you want watching your stuff, but that doesn't equate to good ratings, and therefore it's a very good possibility that Doctor Who in its current incarnation is not going to get renewed. In fact, there's talk that the BBC may shelve it for 5 years and then come back to it because they don't want to be spending the money on a sinking ship. But of course, we have some conflicting information here from Gizmodo, which basically says that, okay, like, even though there are rumors flying around that Doctor Who is going to be getting canceled, there's no official announcement. They're going to wait until after season 2 of the Disney Plus stuff finishes before they make a decision on whether or not to go forward with it. So apparently, like, you know, all these rumors are flying around, but apparently the rumors are quote unquote not true. But Brian, I know that you know, you're a big Doctor Who guy, science fiction guy in general. What's your take on this?
God, that guy sucks so bad. Like he is. Look, Zendaya is bad. Oh my God. Right?
Would she make the show better?
Like she's mid, but Zendaya would make that show better. Yes. Like if you removed him and had Doctor Who regenerate into Zendaya, people would actually breathe a sigh of relief. He is so horrible. He's like a power button turned Doctor Who. I'm so tired of this guy. I'm tired of his look. I'm tired of the way he talks. He's the worst thing to happen to this franchise. It's crazy. I remember complaining about the femme Doctor Who, like there's a lot of woke.
Whittaker.
Yeah, thank you. A lot of woke stuff in here. A lot of woke ideology. Now I'm that compare this Doctor Who compared to femme Doctor Who. Femme Doctor Who is better. Like, I miss femme Doctor Who somehow. This hyper gay, super power bottom, cum guzzler Doctor Who is the worst. I'm so over it. I can't wait for it to end. And I hope that when it ends, they take like 3 years off.
Just 3?
Yeah, they need to take at least 3 years off. Take 3 years off, like rethink the whole process, and then come back strong with a proper Doctor Who. And I don't care if what color the Doctor Who is. All I care is that the actor knows how to act and isn't flaming homosexual.
Take these franchises need to take like 10 years off. Allow
10 years,
people to
yeah.
like grow out of, because like that's one of the things I think that we get caught up in is like they'll take like 2 or 3 years and then they'll redo it. It's like, but all those people are still like invested into what the story was. Take a decade off from it. Let people who like kind of grew up with it like age out and like either die or you know just kind of forget about it. and then allow a new generation to sort of come in and maybe enjoy it. Because at that point, you've detached yourself from it emotionally and mentally, and then you know what I mean. Because like I think they should more often than not end series completely. Like just end them, end the arc, be done. And then if you need to reboot it later on, like detach it from what it was. You know, you could loosely associate it with it, you know, like be creative. Think of something that, you know, I don't know Doctor Who at all. I unfortunately I'm the worst person to talk to about this, but in general, franchises should embrace this. Take several years off, 5 to 10 years, allow people to disconnect from it and then start anew. It's something that we're obsessed, or that Hollywood's obsessed with, is just like, keep this train rolling, keep milking that thing, you know?
Right. Yeah, they gotta keep momentum. That's what they think, but what they're doing is they're crashing into brick walls and they're trying to keep driving this broken car. You know, it doesn't work.
People get fatigued too. Like they're just like, oh my god, I've had enough of this. Like next, you know. So
if I never had to watch another Star Trek, Star Wars, Doctor Who, whatever show in my life, I would be okay with that.
It's crazy how these things that I grew up being such a fanatic of, like I would go to conventions, buy all the comic books, buy all the novels, every figurine. I love Star Wars. I love Star Trek. I was a massive Trek head. When I got introduced to Doctor Who, dude, that's all I can watch was Doctor Who. Loved it. And then now I literally don't care. It's not even hate anymore. It's just apathy. When I see a Doctor Who poster or something new, I just scroll past it. It's not interesting to me anymore. You've completely lost me.
They need to shelve these things and just start, you know, making shows and movies about some of the stuff out there that we haven't seen yet or haven't heard of. You know, it's like Mr. Kadish sitting here next to me has a whole series of books that he's written would be a great animated show, or even a cool,
I agree,
a cool live action show, you know, and there's all kinds of authors and books and series out there that are in the same boat. They're just being ignored because these studios, all they want to do is fucking rehash old shit that they think are money cash cows, and they're not, because they're ruining them when they redo them. And it's just, it's crazy to me. So
it's because they're injecting their own ideology into it. They think that, oh, this franchise is too big to fail. Now we can start grooming the next generation to like what we like. And what happens is they learn pretty quickly, or not pretty. They learn pretty slowly that that every franchise can fail and nothing is too big. And look at every franchise is just crashing and burning.
And for no other reason too, you could also maybe inject some value into these series, like by ending them, you know, like by saying this is done, then the stuff that like came out, merchandise and all that stuff, and those characters become they hold some value. Now it's just like, well, we're just going to run this thing in the ground until nobody cares and no one wants to buy the toys. Or
Shagworth, look at Firefly, Supernatural. Like, these things ended. There's still conventions every year.
Yep.
I run a t-shirt site. That's my day job. I still sell Supernatural and Firefly shirts every day.
Yep.
And that Supernatural, Firefly had one season years and years and years ago. It ended, and people are still hyper fanatics for this. Imagine if they just kept going until people were like, you know what? I don't really give a crap about this anymore.
Yeah. You got some covered wagons on the t-shirt and says Firefly on the front of them or something?
I have the one that says keep flying, and it has I know you don't like Firefly. It doesn't matter. Bottom line is the franchise ended before it killed itself. Supernatural went a little long, but it's still yeah, there you go. Beautiful.
Dutch has a problem with horses in space, but I want to throw this to Odin real quick. Odin, there's this really interesting paragraph in this article I'm going to read. It says the BBC had insisted that the overnights and 7-day figures were not conclusive for Doctor Who. Its spokeswoman said overnights no longer provide an accurate picture of all those who watch drama in an on-demand world. Additionally, the rep noted that this season of Doctor Who premiered on iPlayer, have no idea what that is, nearly 24 hours before the broadcast, which significantly affected the overnight figures. However, the industry source was not convinced, saying they can talk all they like about young viewers, but they're still down from the specials and down from the Jodie Whittaker series. I imagine serious conversations are happening. Disney will want to see results. So I want to ask you, Odin, obviously they have like some internal numbers that they're looking at, and they're saying like, oh, like it's not as bad as people are making it out to be because we did some things that kind of screwed up the overnight Nielsen ratings or whatever the case may be. And you and I have had conversations particularly about like how do you determine what a success is on a streaming platform nowadays? But with Disney Plus, like they know the numbers too, and they know how much they're spending. And if Disney Plus is like, well, we're not seeing a return on investment here, so we're not going to go further than what we've already committed to, I think that says a lot about what the ratings for this show actually are. So do you want to comment on like how they're determining these numbers for Doctor Who's cancellation?
Yeah, I mean, it's all crap. I mean, the way that all these streamers try to, formulate views and how they try to calculate these things, it drives me nuts because it's just so convoluted. And it's clear that they know exactly what's going on. They have the inside data and know how many individual persons are subscribing to their channel to watch X material, right? They have that information. But they're never going to release it because they know that the numbers aren't that great. So they have to create a metric that makes it look good so they can sell it, right? That's all that it's about, is trying to sell it to advertisers, trying to sell it to their stockholders, to keep confidence high. And so over time, there comes a problem, though, where people start to, kind of have this general mindset, this general view that, hey, wait a minute, you can keep on trying to claim these numbers or try to claim things are better than you think that they are, but the reality is just not panning out. And we know this just from our own experience. Like, I can speak as someone who was a huge fan of the original reboot of the series back in, was it 2005, when it was Eccleston started off the series after it had been on hiatus for a time. And so really enjoyed that, enjoyed the David Tennant years, the Matt Smith years, and then to a point, right, the Peter Capaldi years as well, right, that kind of went downhill over time, but eventually got to the point where I just gave up even on the Peter Capaldi years because it just wasn't as good anymore. And then when all the announcements started coming about Jodie Whittaker, and now, of course, it's gone on, even crazier than that, it made me say, okay, I have no interest in ever coming back to the series ever again. Like, they've completely lost me as a fan. And there are too many of us who have just dropped the series altogether, who have not watched any of the Jodie Whittaker years, who have fallen off, everything. And even my wife, who is also a big fan of Doctor Who, even though she has a very different mindset than I do. She has no problems with a female doctor. She has no problems with like some of the choices that they've made. She's just, again, a very different personality. She has still not gone out of her way to actually watch those either. So clearly they're losing just even the normie persons too. And so they can keep claiming these things, but if we just look and see and talk to the people, real people around us, it's clear that barely anyone's watching this in comparison to what it used to be.
Tom, do you know if there are any truth to the rumors that Doctor Who's getting canceled? Tom Connors.
He did mention that he did not care about Doctor Who, so he may have taken that as an opportunity to get more cereal.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, Dutch, no one hates Doctor Who more than you do.
I don't hate Doctor
Who. Or doesn't care about Doctor Who as much as you do. One of the big criticisms about the latest Doctor Who has been that basically it's been injected with too much wokeness. Like, you have a black gay doctor, you have a female doctor. They've gone back and retconned, the doctor's origin story. They now have like a trans person who's as powerful as a god and all this other stuff. Do you think that one of the reasons that the ratings are suffering is because people are just tired of these crazy messaging?
Well, of course,
that's incorporated into their beloved friend. Like, you can't sit down with your family and watch this stuff with these types of political messages going on.
No, and I think people are sick of all this crap, and that's why the show's probably on its way to getting canceled, because nobody's watching it. There's not enough of these freaks and weirdos and mentally disturbed people out there to keep these kind of things alive. And how they've gotten themselves so entrenched into the showrunners and the writers and all this kind of stuff to keep these things going is absolutely beyond me. I don't understand it, how we've let in such a small fraction of our world become such a massive dominant voice in our society. It's crazy to me, and I think we're starting to see the backlash now. I mean, that's why Trump is going crazy and doing all these things from the White House. It's and there's other countries around the world that are doing the same thing. Vance had to go over there a couple of weeks ago and chew out all of Europe because they're letting all this social justice bullshit infect the fabrics of their societies and their countries over there. It's wild to me. And
it's cultural death.
Yeah, and this is just another symptom of all of that. And it's just it's crazy. We're in a war here. We're in a society battle of culture, and we're going to end up winning in the end. But man, this is just the kind of stuff that just gets beaten up and destroyed along the way. And it's sad because I've never been a Doctor Who guy, and and the only reason is because I was just never exposed to Doctor Who when I was a kid. The British stuff was on PBS. I never watched that shit. After I was 3 years old when I got done watching Sesame Street. So they always show stuff like Blackadder and Red Dwarf and Doctor Who, and all that was all on that weird public broadcasting station. I didn't watch any of that stuff, so I've never been into Doctor Who, and I never really bothered to get into it when it had its resurgence here either. So I just didn't see a point in it. But I understand that it's a hugely popular thing, and I feel bad for the fans of it because they've just destroyed it with all this woke garbage nonsense. And I think it's kind of funny that this actor is like starting to figure out, it's like, maybe I shouldn't have attached myself to this piece of crap, even though he's he checks every single checkbox that they look for. So maybe even some of those people are starting to figure out that maybe we need to just shut up and act, to a certain extent. I don't know.
Oh, look at Reacher, bro. For those first 2 seasons, everyone loved it. Everyone loved Reacher the first 2 seasons, and now it's just getting hyper woke. The second the guy opens his dumb jock mouth and starts talking about Guatemalan abortions or whatever, the entire show falls off. Yeah. I watched it yesterday, and at one point he literally says Black Lives Matter in the series. It's like I've never seen a series fail so quickly. But at least we're not going to get 7 more seasons of this garbage.
Yeah. It's funny. Go ahead.
I was going to say, like, I don't know if any of you have ever read the Reacher novels, but they're fucking great.
Yeah,
and this guy, well, first of all, he looks more like Reacher than Tom Cruise does, but it blows me away that they don't, like, you have the answer. It's written right there for you. Transfer it to a script.
Yep.
This guy is badass wall to wall. There's
very little thought process that needs to go into this. Also, Tom Cruise is like the opposite of what I think Jack Reacher should look like. No, but just copy the books. You don't got to add commentary, dude.
Yeah. I'd point out that Lee Childs is a huge leftist wokester, so he's probably the one injecting a lot of that stuff into the.
Well, the early books were not. I mean, the early books were pretty brutal, and even like his interactions with women, they weren't like 007, like those. I don't know if you read those novels either, but like some of those were like, ooh, okay, like, but they're still like he's.
I'd argue Lee Childs is a terrible author personally, but that's just me. Shags, do you think there's anything that the powers that be at the BBC or Doctor Who production company can do to course correct for season 2 in order to get it off the chopping block?
I mean, like I said, I'm not the best person to ask about Doctor Who. I don't know what. I mean, the only thing I could speak from just like an artistic standpoint is like. Stories can be written in a way that can apply to both like political leanings or any sort of cultural like background. It's the beauty of art is it's in its interpretation. Like some people can look at it from a left-leaning perspective, people can look at it from a right-leaning perspective and say, "Oh, I see the message here," and it can kind of come together in the middle. Like when you write good stories, when you produce good art, anyone who looks at it can have their like that is the only way I think through. Like any show that's on the chopping block, especially this one that's beloved in the past, you can course correct by just writing a good story with characters that matter, who have heart, and that aren't trying to push some sort of political agenda.
You know what character really matters for Doctor Who, Shags? Zendaya. Next in Iron Man for $4.99. Hashtag Zendaya Doctor Who 2025. LOL. Yes. Zendaya can fix anything, and she makes everything better.
She would make that series better. And she's horrible. That's saying something, man.
What's not horrible is hemorrhoid hurts for Australian $2. Good morning, nerds, friends in chat. Doctor Who is dead. dead, yes. And we have John Yulden, our previous week's guest, for £4.99. Doctor Who needs 10 years to rest to purge the activist production team from it. It also needs to be reset to the end of Capaldi. So no more Jodie Whittaker or any of that nonsense. All right, guys. So let's talk about today's big story, which is Amazon has gained creative control over James Bond. Now, this was kind of like a surprise because James Bond has been privately controlled by the Broccoli family pretty much since it started to actually make movies out of the books. But the two kind of stewards of the James Bond franchise, Michael G. Wilson and Barbara Broccoli, have come to an agreement with Amazon where basically Amazon has entered into a joint venture with these two to co-own James Bond as the franchise. But Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson are stepping back from their roles as creative heads and basically handing the creative reins over to Amazon. So basically they'll get to participate in the profits of James Bond, but they will have no actual say in what gets made. So Amazon can choose to make any type of spinoff they want. They can cast whatever Bond they want. They can, make whatever type of movie they want. It's all in Amazon's court right now. And the joke is that basically Amazon, with Jennifer Salke at the head of it, makes terrible movies, terrible TV shows, and they have no idea what they're doing, and they're going to DEI the heck out of James Bond. But some people are saying like, well, maybe there's a chance that this won't go the route of woke Disney with Star Wars, and that they'll actually treat the franchise with respect, to which I just have to say, look at Citadel, and you'll see what they have planned for James Bond, essentially. But Mr. Butters, I want to ask you, what's your take on Amazon taking over James Bond? You're muted.
I don't foresee anything good coming out of this, to be honest with you. I can hope and pray that they come to their senses and just make a good James Bond movie and cast some cool dude and have him go be the womanizing spy guy that he is. But I don't have any faith in him that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to end up getting some, that dude that's on the Doctor Who guy, he's going to quit Doctor Who and go be James Bond.
Yeah, that's what's happening, bro.
That's what's going to happen. I hope to God does not. I hope to God.
Oh my God! I think that's
probably
totally
what's going to
possible.
happen. Yeah.
He's like, I gotta quit Doctor Who to play James Bond.
Yeah.
Before we find them, I have to
He
do
comes
my
in
nails,
wearing a
guys.
rainbow
Hey, everybody.
suit.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I hope not. But no, that was like one of the most worst things I saw in the news this week. Was I just went, oh, here we go. Not James. I kind of thought James Bond was going to be able to weather the woke storm, and kind of get through this whole thing without any more real damage done to him. I mean, the character is already kind of jacked up, but yeah, I don't foresee anything good coming to this. I'm really kind of disappointed in the people that were in charge of James Bond. I feel like they kind of gave up. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But whatever.
Well, Tom Connors Jr., what's your take on Amazon officially taking creative control of James Bond? How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, just so up front, like I have no personal horse in this race. I didn't grow up with James Bond in my household. I've seen a handful of the films, and I understand everybody's reaction to this, and I understand why you would have this kind of a gut reaction to this. And much like the Doctor Who stuff you guys were just talking about, and yes, Odin was right. I stepped away because I said I had nothing to say about that. Anyhow, and that is funny if that Shooty Gawa guy is coming over to play Bond. No, here's the thing. Maybe allow me to not be the doom and gloom guy for once and say that maybe this is possibly a good thing, because what has been the problem in the last few years? Barbara Broccoli has wanted either a gay, black, trans, whatever, non-straight Bond, and somebody has been butting heads with her because we haven't had a movie in almost 5 years now. In fact, by next year, it will be the longest gap since 89 to 90, whatever it was when Pierce Brosnan took over in Bond films. So somebody's pissed. And here's the thing. Amazon bought MGM a couple years back. The only thing they got out of the Bond deal was distribution rights, basically. So this, to me, makes fiscal sense. And they got Bond for a steal, really, if you look at it. They don't own it outright, right? Eon still owns some part of it. But what they have is creative control, is what you're saying, Matt. And to me, it's like somebody said, look, how much is it to get Barbara out of the fucking room?
Right.
I think that's what somebody asked. Said, how much is it going to cost to get her out of the goddamn room so we can actually get something done? And here's the negative side of it, because I know Amazon will exploit the fuck out of this. I think, because the first thing Jeff Bezos asked is, who do you want as James Bond? And he got bombarded with Henry Cavill. If Henry Cavill wasn't his first phone call yesterday morning, then I don't know what to do with Jeff Bezos at this point, because I think they're on the right track. But the thing is, get ready for all the spin-offs that you can, throw a stick at, basically, or a rock at, because at this point, that's what they're going to do. So for better or worse, I think you're going to get more James Bond. You have more of a chance of getting Henry Cavill as James Bond right now than you ever have before.
Okay.
Because at this point, Barbara Broccoli was never going to let him be James Bond. Just wasn't going to happen.
That's
You ever
true.
notice that all the names that were coming up were like Aaron Taylor Johnson, all these other white, they weren't going anywhere. So she was probably the one who was bottlenecking everything. So somebody says, how much is it going to take, Barb? What do I have to write on this check to make you leave? And get the fuck out of here. And they said $1 billion. And Jeff's like, done.
Go
Get
away.
the fuck out. Because here's the other thing too, and I get it. Everybody
Security
knows,
escort this brought out of here.
yeah, everybody knows that Bob Iger and Jeff Bezos are two of the biggest proponents of this woke shit. But they've also been rubbing elbows with Trump in the last few weeks at Mar-a-Lago.
That's
So
true.
something is going on here inside the industry. The creatives are going to be continuing to and trying to destroy shit. But I think the money people have come to their senses going, look, you can't continue to do this shit, right? And Bond was $1 billion film, the last film out. And they've wasted time. Nothing has come out in the last 5 years for James Bond at all.
I'm sorry. I got this image in my head right now of Trump at Mar-a-Lago, and he's got all these people in the room, and you got Zelensky and
When are we going to fix
and Putin
James Bond?
and all these guys. Just like, hold on, guys, we got to fix something important here. Like Iger, you guys, and we didn't talk about James Bond. No, I don't care about the Hamas-Israeli war right now. We got to fix something important.
I get it. Have you called Henry Cavill? Seriously. This is getting out of control, Jeff.
Yeah.
Well, Shagsworth, one of the issues with being cast as James Bond is basically it's like a full-time job. It's hard to do other projects while you're playing James Bond. And Henry Cavill seems to have a lot of other stuff lined up at Amazon, such as Warhammer 40K and things like that. In fact, the three favorites, as Tom just mentioned on Amazon here, are James Norton, Aaron Taylor Johnson, and Theo James, with Aaron Taylor Johnson being, I think, Jennifer Salke's favorite out of the three. But Theo James, he was recently on The Gentleman on Netflix, the Guy Ritchie series, and a lot of people kind of woke up to him being a possible James Bond as well.
Love that series.
Who do you think would be the best choice for James Bond, and do you think Amazon will be smart enough to actually cast them?
I like Andrew Taylor Johnson. I thought that was a good pick. The guy from The Gentleman, can't think of his name. I do like that pick. I think that would be a good one as well. If he were younger, I said this on Twitter the other day. I would be down for Idris Elba to play a James Bond. I know. Eyebrow
I wouldn't
up.
be against that.
But I just like him. I like him as an actor. I think he's got that, like, just his prowess is like kind of imposing. He can be a gentleman. I heard someone say, or maybe someone responded saying that he would be down to do maybe another 00. And to Tom's point, I would say that I think that's a good chance you'll see spinoffs from this because of it being part of Amazon. Because, now they want their hands in everything. But on the flip side, as much as I don't want to doom and gloom either, I would say that the mishandling with like Rings of Power, it shows me like, oh man, like I don't know if they're going to be like faithful to this character. And even beyond that, Amazon doesn't make their money from their shows. They make their money from, like they have this blank checkbook that they can just keep writing. It doesn't matter if it's a loss or not. So I almost see them almost like probably experimenting with some of these shows and characters in the future, which
I don't want any experimenting done with Bond.
No, I mean, the formula's there. It works. So,
well, Brian, Amazon famously they bought out MGM, so like they have access to Stargate, they have access to RoboCop and Rambo and all this other stuff, and they've just kind of squandered these IPs. Do you think that they're going to be doing anything different with Bond?
Yeah, what's funny is, so I actually have a friend over there that works. I'm not gonna say where. I don't want to get him fired or her fired or they fired. I don't know. Stop talking too much. But it's funny because Stargate and RoboCop were actually connected at the hip. So like the same teams that were working on Stargate were working on RoboCop, and after the actors strike and the writers strike and creative differences between the people, the creatives that they were going to hire to show run all this stuff, it just sort of like stalled out. And like the last time I talked to the guy, he was like, yeah, we still have weekly meetings about it, and the meetings are pretty much the same every week. It's like, oh, we're still looking for new talent. So I think that, man, if anyone needs a Doge treatment, man, it's Amazon, because they have so much redundancy over there. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. Like, imagine being on a team where your entire job every week is to have pointless meetings about the same exact topic every single week. Still looking. I can imagine.
That's where I can believe that Bezos doesn't really look into what he's buying sometimes before he buys it. Because this is kind of similar to Lord of the Rings. I think he saw the same thing happen to him with MGM. Because when he bought it, he's like, shit, I thought I was getting James Bond, and I thought I was getting this, and I thought I was getting that, not just the distribution. Because all he really... Look, we love RoboCop. I'm one of the biggest RoboCop fans in the world. And I think Stargate is great. But I'll be the first to tell everybody, they're not big, huge franchises. They're very niche franchises. And that's why Amazon's kind of just like, yeah, we'll get to them eventually. But when it comes to James Bond, this is a big deal.
Right.
So if they screw this up, this is on a much higher, bigger level than
I disagree that Stargate isn't a big franchise.
I think Stargate is a huge franchise.
I know, I'm hurting every nerd's fucking feelings by saying
No, you're not. No,
but it's true.
It legitimately is, though.
You've got Star Wars
Stargate
here,
is huge.
Star Trek here, Stargate's somewhere down here. Right above Independence Day, maybe, as far as like
maybe. I would say Stargate's. I would say I would agree with you. Stargate might be third on that list, but Star Trek and Star Wars are two of the biggest franchises in the world. So they're playing in the big three. That's not bad.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like on a grand scale.
I'll say like Stargate's a worldwide franchise. People around the world have been watching like the various different series for a long time, and it hasn't been destroyed the way Star Wars and Star Trek has been.
Which is why it's more viable. Right.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, but as far as James Bond goes, the team, when I remember talking to them, the teams that are working on them they're not individual teams. It's like a group of sort of disconnected creatives. And I think maybe Tom's right. I think they just backed the dump truck up and said how much to get this chick out of the room so we can actually get some work done, form a team, and make it happen. Fact is, though, like last time we checked, like they've been trying to sort all that out just so they can start working. I think you're also right. Henry Cavill should be the next Bond. That would be a beautiful pick.
Well, Odin, Amazon's been trying to get a big budget spy franchise off the ground for quite some time. They tried it with Citadel. They had that one, I forget what it was called, but it had Wonder Woman in it. Gal Gadot. And they also
Heartbreaker. No, what was it called? Something of the heart. Something with hearts.
The Heart of Stone.
Heart of Stone. Yes.
Heart of Stone, and then they had the Gray Man with, what's their names? Captain America and the Fall Guy. But they've been throwing good money after bad to try to get a spy franchise going. They just can't seem to do it. But now that they're freed up to use James Bond. There's talk about TV show franchises, books, comic books, podcasts, all types of stuff that they plan on doing. But Amazon's not really good about getting movies into theaters. And James Bond, at the end of the day, is a theatrical franchise. So how do you think they're going to be handling this IP?
It's a really good question. And I think their casting of Bond is going to be the key indicator of exactly how seriously they're taking it and what we can kind of expect from them going forward. A big part of the process of just getting a film made and getting it out in theaters is how much money is being put into marketing. And one of the issues that Amazon has always had is that whenever they either make their own movie through MGM or whether they are, buying the rights to a movie and then putting it out in theaters, is that their marketing has never really been all that great. That's why their MGM films have really not done that well. I think that I forget exactly when the MGM deal went through. Did they have MGM distribution rights by the time No Time to Die came out?
I think it was around 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. So
yeah, it was right around that time. I think the film was already in production and almost done or done.
Okay.
But yeah, Amazon bought it in the process of, and like I said, that's where I think they learned. All we have is distribution.
Yep. Exactly. And even with that movie, and it came out in 2021, and the people who, oftentimes will say, oh, it made $700+ million during a year when a lot of films struggled. But then I always like to point out, but just a few months later, Spider-Man No Way Home, broke everyone's expectations and showed that no, people can be driven out to the theater. It's just, it has to be a movie that actually gives fans kind of what they want. And I don't think No Time to Die really did that. So though it was a better performing film, probably because of its IP, it wasn't because of Amazon. It wasn't because of Amazon's marketing of the film. And I think that that's like a big issue they have, is getting people to actually go to see their movies. And so now that they're in creative control, it doesn't really bode well for them if they're going to follow the same pattern that they have for their other theatrical releases. But that's why if we do see a change, if we see them, if they cast someone like Henry Cavill, for instance, as James Bond, and they start to show like, hey, he's, if reports come out that he is giving his feedback and that he's being listened to in some way, right, that he has have some, for all we know, I don't know how big of a Bond fan he is, but he's a nerd, and so that is, of course, something where it's like nerds oftentimes have multiple fandoms that they can enjoy at the same time. It would be something that I think would give a lot of people a little bit more confidence. And if they're then able to do marketing right, and I don't know who they need to contact. Really, they should probably contact whoever marketed, Barbie, because that film's marketing is why that film made as much money as it did. So they need to find like some type of, similarity there to really get the marketing for their films going, because that's the way that they'll be successful. But they have to get the person right first. If they don't have a good Bond, if they don't get that choice right, then it doesn't matter what they do. It's not going to end well for them.
Man, if they go with Cavill, that movie is going to be successful, like instantly. It'll be a $1 billion movie, and another franchise will be back on track. It'd be a huge move.
Well, and the problem with their films are right now they are the advertising, right? Like, because a movie like Red One is interesting because I don't know how you viewed it, Odin, when you reported on it, but like the thing with that movie is it was already pretty much prepaid for, and it being in theaters, it didn't matter how much it made. Because all that was driving people to go see it on Amazon Prime. That's why it was on a month after it was in theaters. So basically, all them sending their movies to theaters is just like it's just basically advertising for their streaming service at the end of the day. But I do think that you make a point. Like, I do think Bezos wants to put Amazon/MGM on a theatrical stage on a level with the rest of the guys, and Bond is a franchise that can get them there. Right, like that was my point earlier about Stargate and RoboCop and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't matter how much we love these; they're not on a level to where you can put a movie out in theaters and actually make almost $1 billion or make $1 billion and make the splash that Amazon needs right now to be kind of like part of that game. Because we can look at it and go, "Oh, how quaint and cute it is that they keep putting these movies out," but really, all they really are is just advertising for Amazon Prime. At the end of the day. Like a movie like Red One was paid for by all the product placement and all that other crap. It doesn't, we'll never know what it really cost or made Amazon at the end of the day because they don't have to report that crap.
I do think that too, that the James Bond in general is a franchise that requires a big name. Like some franchises have banked on like the unknowns to sort of carry it and like make them into someone down the line. But like you look at all the James Bonds from the past, like they were someone like in that sort of era. Like everyone knew the name, they knew the person, and it was the guy for.
I disagree with that.
Well, maybe not Daniel Craig. Maybe he broke the mold there.
Sean Connery, nobody knew who he was until he became Bond, right?
Really?
And
I
he
thought-
went on
okay.
to have,
Sean
like, a great career.
Connery.
Daniel Craig.
Sometimes you have to slap a woman.
Timothy Dalton. Even Roger Moore wasn't like a huge name. So like they have
Pierce
history of-
Brosnan was probably the most famous Bond when he was cast.
Yeah.
And that's where this will probably be if we get Henry Cavill or Aaron Taylor Johnson or somebody like that the fans actually want, that'll be the first time they've actually listened to the fans since then. Because otherwise that was when, after Pierce Brosnan's work, to me, if you like, what are you doing? You went against the grain. They went and got this Daniel Craig guy, and I'm not a Bond fan. I'm just looking at it from the outside going, yeah, this doesn't look or smell or feel like James Bond to me.
The real question I have for you guys on the panel is, what is the probability that Amazon hires a Kathleen Kennedy-like showrunner or, Kevin Feige,
13.5%.
who basically oversees the entire Bond franchise and just runs it into the ground? What do you
A
guys
Bond czar?
think about that? A Bond czar.
50-50 at this point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
78.7%.
47.2. 47.2.
It's very specific.
I mean, you have a good point though. Like a lot of people think that look how successful Marvel was. We needed Kevin Feige to do it. Look how successful it's been lately. How's it going now? Like rethink that entire concept. You should be hiring people that love the source material. You do that, you'll get fans on board. It'll be cakewalk.
There's also been a lot of talk about setting the Bond universe back in the 1960s and 70s.
That'd be all right.
When the movies originally first start hitting the theaters, and basically like bypassing all like the modern day audience stuff and going back to the roots of the Cold War and, the 60s, all the stuff that was going on there. Basically what Austin Powers did, but, non satire type stuff. What do you guys think of that idea?
Nah.
Well, then you have to be like misogynistic. That wouldn't pass now,
Yeah, plus, imagine Q walking up there and being like, "Look at this brand new cellular mobile phone I have," and it's like 3 feet, large. No, like a big part of James Bond is also the gadgets and all. It wouldn't work going back to the 60s.
I would say most people actually have, and I've said this for a while, and you can actually play with the retro futurism of the classic style.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't hate that idea at all.
Yeah, you come up with gadgets and other things that kind of never existed and never will, but they feel like they would have existed in the original Bond films, and that makes sense. You put Bond in an era where it's okay to have him be a womanizer, right?
Right.
That's...
Wait, don't we have a modern day James Bond that works with the Kingsman series? Womanizer, technology, badass.
Yeah.
You can do it now. You don't have to set it in the 60s.
You don't have to, but you could. And I think, why not? Why not do it that way?
It helps with some of the continuity, too, because you've had a situation now where you've had, 50, 60 years of James Bond films, and they try to have some kind of connective tissue, from my understanding, but it's kind of difficult when you're, 30, 40 years removed from some of these films.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, like nowadays, James Bond would be fighting people who are posting memes on the internet.
He said bad
and you
words.
got to lean into what made it famous, right? Instead of trying to be James Bourne or any of these other franchises, Bond was always kind of like both a mix of what made James Bond with whatever the popular thing was at the time, right? Whether he was fighting ninjas or in space or, whatever it was at the time that was going on. It was just, you found a way to blend in with Bond, and it's like they lost that too.
I just got this image in my head of Bond going into Q's office. And he's going, "We have this meme of this puppy doing a Yahtzee salute. You must go after this person called Count Dankula." And it's just like, oh my God. Yeah, I kind of want it to be back in the 60s now. Let's do that. Let's just embrace it and go with it.
I think that Cavill should play Bond, and he should team up with the Avengers to go back to Middle Earth in his Space Marine armor to destroy Morgoth. I think that would be the best.
Wait. They got to fight Iron Man and the Avengers. You forgot.
Oh, sure. That's
and then Darth Vader shows up and fucks them all up.
Getting off the rails here.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's all
a little
right.
bit. You guys know what else is off the rails is late night television. And an article in Variety just came out declaring Greg Gutfeld of Fox News fame as the king of late night. I don't
Right
know
on.
if you guys had a chance to read through this very long article, but did you know that Greg Gutfeld and his show Gutfeld on Fox basically pulls in more ratings than every single late night show combined?
That does not shock me at all.
Yeah.
So his TV show pulls in regularly over 3 million viewers per night.
Wow.
The
wild.
other late night shows can't even hit 2 million, right? And one of the interesting aspects of this article is basically they talked about how of the collective late night audience, Greg Gutfeld is the only one catering to the right wingers, whereas the others are all competing for the left wing audience. So they're all getting like smaller portions of that stuff.
Isn't his
But it's-
show a little bit more kind of like modern media too, kind of like what we're doing in a way?
It's
Yeah,
yeah,
so-
it's like a panel show,
So they-
sort of irreverent.
Yeah, basically what they do is they have a panel show where they don't have like celebrity guests come on, whereas the Carson format, which is what all the other late night shows follow,
Mhm.
it's basically celebrity guest after celebrity guest, one-on-one interviews. And another thing that they kind of talk about in here, which is kind of interesting, is that basically Gutfeld doesn't pull any punches. Like he's not afraid to say stuff that could be considered controversial. Like when he was going through the Amelia Perez actor's tweets, Carlos Sofia Gascon's old tweets, he was reading them live on air, and he was like, actually, I'm starting to like this lady, or like, or this dude, or whatever it was he called him. It's kind of interesting. So like, while everyone else is trying to like be very careful with their words about this controversy, Gutfeld's just there. He's like, nope, this tweet's right on, has a point, type thing. But I think it's more emblematic of how late night has refused to evolve over the years. And Gutfeld is kind of like just staking his flag and being authentic and basically catering to an audience that doesn't like what they're seeing on the other late night things, like Colbert shilling for COVID vaccines and stuff like that. But I want to get your guys' take on this. Let's start with you, Odin. What do you think about the current state of the late night landscape and how Greg Gutfeld is undeniably right now the king of late night?
I mean, yeah, because late night right now is a joke. I remember when I was younger, my parents were they typically watched a lot of Letterman. This is before Letterman became too crazy, right towards the end of his career, especially. But it was just like he was a regular late night host, right? And he just like went through the motions. It wasn't really anything crazy. And so I remember watching that, and then just seeing the clips that I have of Colbert, or of some of these other guys where they are just shilling for pharmaceutical companies, or clearly are just a extension of the modern Democrat Party. It really is just sad, and you isolate your audience in a very, very strong way. The reason why I think that Gutfeld's doing so well is because I actually watched Gutfeld a long time ago when he was on a little show called Red Eye. And Red Eye was hilarious.
Yeah.
And the comedians that he would have on, and he really hasn't ever fallen away from that. He has been that same person since the time at Red Eye. Like the show may have changed a little bit. The overall structure, the production value has gone up quite a bit. But that show, they used to put on, at like midnight. Like it was like middle of the night if you wanted to watch that show. And he had enough of a fan base where eventually over time, when certain spots opened up, he eventually got into the rotation of the five, and eventually like that became a huge thing in and of itself. And now he has his own show, and now that show is doing these gangbuster numbers. But it's because he's a comedian, and I think that's the thing that's lacking in a lot of these late night shows, is that they're no longer acting as comedians. They are acting as political activists. And if there's anything that Gutfeld isn't, it's a political activist. Because even though one could argue he is clearly more right wing or more conservative, he honestly doesn't really come off that way. He comes off much more genuine, much more authentic, and a lot of it really just comes across more as just direct comedy. And I think that's why his numbers are so well, and why I think he is becoming this king. But it's, again, I don't think it's just because of the conservative aspect of it. I think it's also because he's just a comedy. He's just a comedian, and people want to laugh. People want to be able to have fun, and he allows that to actually happen without having to lecture you.
Brian, what's interesting is in this article, they talk about the recent exodus of quote unquote news anchors, because, Gutfeld is part of the Five, which is the number one rated daytime panel show in 24-hour news. But they talk about how Chuck Todd, Jim Acosta, and Nora O'Donnell are thinking that they can just go off and make like a podcast like Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson did. And basically, Greg Gutfeld's like, no. You have to have people actually like you if they're going to listen to a podcast that you're hosting. And you also have to have credibility, which these people don't. And I think Craig Gutfeld has a lot of authenticity, credibility, all this other stuff, because he's been very consistently kind of like, I don't give a fuck with his takes on stuff. So what do you think is the big difference between someone like Gutfeld, who has like a very hardcore fan base who feel he's authentic, composed to all these other news people who are trying to kind of break out into their own podcast or late night show or what have you?
I mean, it's funny how Greg Gutfeld actually wrote a book called King of Late Night like 2 years ago. And then he actually got that title. And I think the reason is because, just like you said before, he's not actually competing for the same views. Jimmy Kimmel, Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, these are all like the same person. Like, I know they look different, but they're actually the same person. I actually think that maybe they're robots being controlled by the same exact personality. They don't do anything different from each other. They actually legitimately tell the same jokes. It's sort of crazy. There's multiple examples of them having the same opening monologues with the same exact jokes with only slightly different delivery. So you have like, 3 or 4 options if you like that kind of thing. Well, with Greg, when it comes to actual television, not like a internet panel show, well, you got like 1 option, maybe 2 if you got premium. So I think that there's a lot less competition in that pool. And there's a lot more of sort of the irreverent, I'm not going to say conservatives, because like they're not really conservatives. Conservatives have all been lumped into the same category when, Elon Musk is not as conservative, but he also doesn't like the woke culture. He is irreverent, and it's more about freedom. So I'm going to rename that to like the Freedom Party. The Freedom Party is much larger than the Left Party because it consists of a lot of different types of people. MAGA, conservatives, Catholics like Odin, a lot of people. Not just this very specific brain damaged leftist ideologist. So you have a lot more people, a larger market with less competition. It's not really a hard concept.
Tom, a lot of the other late night shows, like for instance, Colbert and Seth Meyers on NBC, they've taken a very hard political stance with their shows. Jimmy Fallon, with the Tonight Show, he's tried to stay kind of like as neutral as possible. A lot of these shows are very kind of aggressive in how they clip out their comedy sketches and put them out on YouTube and stuff like that. But Gutfeld, even though like he doesn't do any clipping of his shows or anything like that, he takes a very hard political stance as well, but he also keeps things funny and light, and he actually pulls in more younger viewers than a lot of the regular late night shows. Do you think late night shows are basically just getting out of relevance because like they actually, they're originally just to kind of like showcase actors and be marketing arms for like the various networks that they're on, and to sell like, commercials and soap and stuff like that, back when Johnny Carson was in charge of things. But nowadays it just seems like they're an outdated version, because you can watch better late night stuff on YouTube. Like you could watch a replay of this podcast, late at night and get like the same kind of like effect,
same vibe,
like, same vibe, but more genuine. Right. So what's your take on this whole idea behind Greg Gutfeld appealing to a younger audience who prefers authenticity as opposed to these other places that just seem to be pushing an agenda that nobody wants and trying really hard to get their comedy clips out in front of people on YouTube?
Okay, I think I know the question. At the end of the day, I think it's less that Gutfeld is going more right, or at least is right oriented. I mean, maybe he does talk about specific political things, but at the end of the day, I think it's more so that the other things have gone so far left that even things like Gutfeld are just normal, right? And things we see as normal now are called right wing.
Right.
Like that's what I'm seeing more so than anything. It's like, okay, so anything that's just basically middle to right is right wing now. Like everything else is, over here. Because that's what I feel happened is like the relevance went out the window more so with them pandering to, the shot and all the other political stuff over the last 8 years. It even creeped in earlier with Obama's era as well. And what happened is people are just like, yeah, I don't care. I can get the same information from people like us or Gutfeld, and I can actually get a better experience through watching people like him or us than I am on Colbert because it comes off as so disingenuous, right? Or Jimmy Kimmel or any of those guys for that matter, because they're basically the corporate shills, and people are smart now. They're getting smarter every day, and I'm amazed at how many people now are aware of woke and are aware of what is happening and how Trump has put it center stage. I mean, frankly, I think that's the bigger problem more than anything. I don't think it has anything to do with anything more than all these guys who have jumped in so deep into the left end of the pool that most people are just like, yeah, I can't even just. You can't.
I can't.
The thing
even.
is like,
right.
Yeah, Johnny Carson is a very neutral person. I couldn't tell you if he was conservative or Democrat, but I'll bet you $5 he was conservative.
And he did that very much on purpose.
Exactly,
because he wanted to be able to make everybody laugh. Today, these late night guys, they don't give a shit if they offend anybody on the right side of the spectrum because that's not their audience. Their audience is that fringe side of the left who, frankly, don't watch late night television. Gutfeld he's doing what he does, and he's as popular as he is because, quite frankly, there's more of us than there are of them.
I mean, it's a good
and
business sense,
and he's
though.
the only one that caters to the center and to the right side of the aisle. He's funny. He's genuinely funny. He gives no shits who he offends, and he's been that way for decades now. I first learned about Greg Gutfeld years and years ago when he was doing the 5 and doing Red Eye and stuff, and he's still on the 5, I believe, and he gave no shits about the things that he said. He was so kooky, so off the wall, with the things that he would pull up on this semi-serious news show every day. It was hilarious to me, the stuff that he would say. And he and sometimes he just likes to like poke the buttons, when he sits there and, when he used to like go rounds with that old fat white guy who was on the left side of the table. What was his name? Maybe I remember, but they would go rounds and it was just hilarious. And these days he has this late night show, which isn't late. It's like on 8 o'clock here or something like that. But he's got this crazy cast of characters. He's got Tyrus on there. He's got Kat Timp on there, and this rotating seat of comedians. I think even Chrissy was on there one time, right, Odin? So, you never know who's going to show up on that show, and it's funny.
They got Trump on there too.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild.
It was one of the funniest interviews that he ever gave.
Yeah, it's great. It's good stuff. And, he's the only one that's really in his sphere of trying to make people like us and our audience laugh every day. So more power to him. I hope he keeps going, man, because he's really good. And I like what he does. He's very irreverent. And I like that kind of humor. So
yeah, I like a lot. I think a lot of people like that kind of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Dutch, one of the interesting things about Greg Gutfeld's humor is that he's not afraid to just poke fun at anything. Like, he doesn't just touch on right-wing issues. He makes fun of everything kind of equally. Whereas someone like Jimmy Fallon, like, if anything's even remotely sensitive, like, you won't even touch it with like a 10-foot pole. So I wanted to ask you, like, do you think that because the humor is so much more kind of like broad on Gutfeld, that's one of the reasons why he's been able to kind of like cultivate this audience? Because in this article, it does point out that he does have a number of left-wingers coming into his show as well, because they just enjoy the comedy of it.
Well, people people like to just laugh. People, back in the day, late night shows, they were always political, but they were always political where they would make fun of people on both sides. Carson destroyed people on both sides of the aisle. Letterman, even before he got super lefty, he was always lefty, but he always would roast people on both sides.
Well, even their political humor was still kind of benign. Like it was right, exactly. They wouldn't make fun of like any like personal politics usually or anything like that. Of course, like the blowjob thing was like floodgates, right? Yeah. Like I mean, those kind of things always were fodder for the late night guys, but they weren't talking about like immigration policies and vaccines and all this other crap that they're doing now. It's like nobody tunes in to hear about that shit. If you want to do a political joke, fine. Do a joke about Biden falling up the stairs. There you go. That's a funny joke. But like otherwise, nothing else. It should be on the table. Yeah.
Late night TV used to be. It all started before there was a 24-hour TV cycle. It was like you watch late night television when your day was over and it was time to go to bed and go to sleep. You watch Johnny Carson, then you'd watch Letterman or whatever, and then the Star Spangled Banner would come on TV, and if you weren't already asleep, then you went to sleep. You didn't stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning and watch or MASH or something. But it was a fun, nice way to end your day. And nowadays that's not how it is. It's just because there's so many other things on. You watch Gutfeld, and then you turn over to the 24-hour sitcom rerun station or whatever. But
the question that Matt asked initially was about clips, and look, I guess the answer to that is they have the audience. The audience is clipping the show for them, as opposed to like the late night shows and shows like The View and all these other shows where they put them out constantly because they hope they have something that goes viral to get some sort of attention on them. But it's funny because we make all the clips they don't want to go viral. So yeah.
But I also think too, like I'm probably the most liberal person on this panel, and I look at a lot of this stuff, and the reason that all these late night shows drove me the other way was because they called me stupid. They insisted that anyone who wasn't guzzling this up on a daily basis, their shitty news was somehow less than stupid, and whatever it was. Racist. Like
seeing a bunch of dancing syringes doing a choreographed dance number. Take the jab. Yeah, he's like, whatever, bro.
So like the fact that Gutfeld is
the dancing jabs. Oh,
he's appealing to so many people because these are people who are like, oh, cool, like I can laugh at everything. Like this is very practical. He's not calling people stupid, and I don't know. Like you need to be mindful of your audience, and the left has not been that for a long time.
And Shags, I want to ask you about this because basically, in terms of relevance, one of the reasons that Greg Gutfeld is so successful right now is because like people see him as more relevant to the culture conversation than a lot of these other players. Like for instance, in this article, they talk about how Bill Maher is no longer as relevant as he used to be when he was doing Politically Incorrect on ABC. Howard Stern, who interviewed Kamala Harris on his show, people don't give a shit about him anymore because he's no longer edgy. He's no longer counterculture. He's part of the system. And Greg Gutfeld, even though he's a mainstay on Fox News, he's seen as kind of counterculture because he just doesn't give a fuck about anything. So what do you think about this difference in terms of like relevancy between what Gutfeld is doing and what all the other late night talk shows are doing?
Well, it's smart because you want to. People are starting to see that like all these like champions from the late 90s, early 2000s, like Howard Stern, Rage Against the Machine, like those guys are the establishment now. They have shilled to the point of becoming jokes, and normal people see it, like and it doesn't even matter if you're like on something like Fox News. Like if you're able to approach people in like a normal, like, hey, I acknowledge you as a person. This is funny. That's funny. We can take the piss out of everything. It's your very best bet. You're going to, as they say, catch more flies with honey because like you want to appeal to the masses in the best way you can. And people, especially the right, have felt that they've been talked down to over the past 4 years. And by humanizing that side of things and saying, hey, you're not that. Like, and even, you got to bridge the gap on the other side too. Like I say, like we have to extend the olive branch on the right to the left is like, I don't consider myself conservative, but like, I try and hold hands with both sides and be like, we're all humans here. This model is the smart way. It's the podcast style, the panel style, because that younger generation, they're watching stuff like that. They're watching stuff like this. And they want to see people bounce ideas off each other. And they want to see people.
Right. My 13-year-olds love panel shows. They'll watch a TikTok live feed that has like 6 people on the same stream. It's obnoxious as hell, but
yeah, that's what these kids are doing. Like on TikTok. I mean, I probably, out of all of you, I probably spend the most time on TikTok. I would listen to those too. There are so many people, thousands sometimes, listening to people battle it out in debates, just talk about video games, watch someone play a video game. Like it's a new spot for the younger audience to be. And that format, if you can appeal to, people overall, that late night crowd who has felt ostracized over the past 4 to 8 years, it's going to be a winning formula every time.
Yeah.
Well, you guys know what else is a winning formula?
Super chats.
Chats. Yes, exactly. Super chats. We got Hemorrhoid Hurts for Australian $2. Bezos is the evil villain and Cock Zuckerberg's sidekick. So that's on the, I believe, James Bond end of things. And we also have Hemorrhoid Hurts for $2 Australian saying late night is not only not funny, it's unfunny.
Yeah.
It's actually negative funny.
It's negative.
That's a good
Negative
point.
funny. Exactly. All right, guys, we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. I want to thank my fantastic panel nerds for being here and sharing their insightful thoughts when they're not off eating cereal.
I had French toast. I
Odin,
can cook.
King of Apple Pizza, Lord of the Shelves. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble. You can also find my work over at geeksgamers.com, where I write a weekly box office breakdown article. Last week's article, very important to breaking down the box office for Captain America Brave New World, as I'm sure tomorrow's will also be of that same level, trying to get all the history in about why this is so bad and why this movie right now is tracking to do worse than Quantumania did. And Quantumania only maxed out around a $450 million worldwide.
Right.
So even if you buy this false $180 million budget, guess what? If you make less than $450 million, you're losing money.
Also, be sure to vote in the Raven Awards.
Yes,
the
indeed.
link is in the pinned comment in the chat. So be sure to let your voice be heard for the Raven Awards.
Absolutely.
I'm
Thank
going to vote in the Pigeon and the Crow Awards, but not the Raven Awards.
How dare you? I hate you.
yes,
They're not my favorite bird. Nevermore.
I do like the Raven Awards.
I appreciate it.
Junior, any final thoughts? Where can people find more of you?
I'll actually be bopping over to Mephisto to talk some Back to the Future here in just a few minutes. So hopefully we'll see some of you over there. I know there's all kinds of choices. So, yeah, other than that, thanks for having me as always. You can find me on Midnight's Edge, Midnight's Edge After Dark. Tonight we will have Flashcast on Midnight's Edge After Dark. So tune in. Thank you so much for having me. Bye-bye.
Nice.
Bye-bye.
Shagsworth, thank you for returning. Any final thoughts? And where can people find more of you?
Yeah, no, thank you. This is always a fun conversation with you guys. You can find me on YouTube and on X at the Shagsworth. I do a weekly pop culture entertainment commentary show called the Midweek Hump every Wednesday at 11:30 p.m. Eastern, where we just talk about everything. It's the most bananas, out of control show since we rebooted it this past year. I took 4 months off or so, and then I was like, you know what, I just want to do it. And so there's really no formula to it. We just talk, and it's a lot of fun. So if you like chaos, come over to my channel every Wednesday night, and then you can mostly see what I'm doing on X. I do a lot of just commentary there about random stuff. But it's always a pleasure, guys. Thank you. In chat, you guys have been awesome with all the super chats and gifted memberships.
Good stuff. And guys, link to Shagsworth YouTube channel is in the description if you want to go over there and show him some love by subscribing. Speaking of love, we got another Gifted Salty Nerd Podcast membership from R2D Bot. Thank
Oh
you.
yeah.
Nice.
Appreciate you. Brian from the Popcast and the Brain Show. Any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you in about a half hour?
Final thoughts. Zendaya sucks.
How dare you?
I really dislike her, but not as much as I dislike the flaming guy. What's his name? Newton something.
Doctor Who?
Who cares?
Cutie Gatwa.
Who cares? Whatever his name is. We're not gonna know his name in 5 years. Let's
You
be real.
shut your mouth about Zendaya. How dare you?
And great seeing you again, Shagsworth. You guys can find me at the Brain Show in about a little over half an hour. We're gonna be talking about a lot of stuff. It's like a 2-hour show, so I'm gonna take a little break. I'm gonna take a piss, and then I'll be back here at the computer ready to stream. That's it.
That's the way to do it. Piss in the
I'm gonna listen to you on my way to work, Brian. So
Yes. Mr. Butters.
Yeah.
What do we got going on in the Salty Nerd Gaming channel?
well, I've been streaming a lot every night almost this week after work. So late night gaming streams over on Salty Nerd Gaming.
Competing with Gutfeld?
No, he's off the air by the time I get home. So but these are like super late night. These are like 2 a.m. in the morning on East Coast time for people. But
Damn.
I stream almost every night when I get home from work for a couple hours just to kind of wind down and end my day. And I know I get a lot of complaints because it's so late. But to make up for that, I'm hoping to be doing some morning streams coming up. But for sure this week, on Monday, we are going to be doing an all-day stream from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., an 8-hour stream on Monday. And it is going to be a Discord community appreciation stream where we're going to be playing with our normal crew, but we're also bringing in members of our community in to play with us all day long. So that's going to be a super fun thing. So see you on Monday on Salty Nerd Gaming. So that's going to be cool.
Good stuff. Want to give a big shout out to everyone who dropped super chats during today. We appreciate your support. We got May Just Say Butts, Mephisto's Movie Reviews, Mexican Iron Man, Hemorrhoid Hurts, and John Yulden. You guys are fantastic. Really appreciate you watching the show and supporting the show and all that good stuff. Be sure to tune in next week. Same salty time, same salty channel for more Salty Nerd Podcast and Salty Saturdays with our fantastic panel of nerds. And until next Saturday, stay salty, my friends.